10 after 9 in the morning. I'm Councilwoman Jan Perry here with Councilmember Tony Cardenas. And Mr. CLA, if you could go through the agenda for me.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Rafael Alberto with the CLA's office. We'd like to recommend item number 6 for consent. That would leave you with 6 items on the agenda.
If there's no objection to that, then that'll be the order. Okay.
Item number 1 is a DWP report and ordinance relative to the power revenue transfer to the city. We have staff from DWP.
Okay, great. Who's here from DWP to make the report?
Good morning. On February 8, 2008, our Board of Water and Power Commissioners declared a power revenue surplus transfer of $182 million. We have went through the process of ensuring that it's in compliance with our master bond resolution, and it does not exceed the prior year's net income of $331 million.
Okay. Any other?
Bill Koenig, CAO's office. This proposal is consistent with previous actions that the city has taken on the power transfer. We recommend approval of it.
Going back how many years did you?
This would go back to 1925.
Okay.
David Hotchkiss, Assistant City Attorney.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cardenas?
Along those lines, is this, the Department of Water and Power is owned by the people of Los Angeles?
That is correct.
Ultimately, it's owned by the people of Los Angeles, and it's part of the infrastructure of the city of Los Angeles, correct?
Correct.
And you mentioned that how long have these transfers been going on?
Since at least 1925, since the 1925 charter came into effect.
Okay. But also, when it comes to, in this case, it's a power side transfer because it's a water and power department, right?
Correct.
But this transfers from the power side.
Power side only.
Okay, when it comes to power matters, isn't there involvement from the federal government when it comes to overseeing or what is allowed or not allowed through municipal districts like ours?
The federal government's control for the municipal utilities is limited to wholesale transfers of electricity and interstate commerce. And so we have a tariff that is completely separate from this discussion, which deals with the amount of money we can charge for wheeling power through our system.
Mm-hmm.
That's governed by the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
So as far as this transfer goes, FERC never has an opinion about this, or?
No, in fact, municipalities all across the country routinely utilize their municipally owned power systems as a source of revenue for the general fund, and it's a practice all across the United States.
Okay, so when you say it's a practice all across the United States, there's dozens, if not, well, at least dozens of authorities like the Department of Water and Power of Los Angeles who are practicing in this legal practice every year.
Yes, and I would say it's far more than dozens.
Yeah. Now, if somebody were to challenge this transfer, where would somebody go to do so? The courts or what?
Yes, if someone wished to challenge the legality of this transfer as occurred in 2003 when I litigated this issue through the Superior Court, it was brought in the Superior Court, and there's a variety of mechanisms one could use. It could be based upon a 526A of the Code of Civil Procedure claiming that this is an illegal expenditure of funds. I don't think that would be particularly successful. Having had a class action on that basis in 2003, we could point to that as a basis to demonstrate that this has already been adjudicated, and all members of the class, which would be all the ratepayers, all the citizens of Los Angeles, have already had their opportunity to litigate this issue, and the court ruled again in our favor as they did in 2000.
So the court, in a nutshell, they upheld the opportunity they were discussing here in item 1.
Exactly. In fact, in that case, there was a challenge both to the water transfer and the power transfer. Both of them were found to be completely lawful and copacetic. I should also point out that the department was audited a couple of years ago, I think again in 2005, by the state auditor, and our practice again was found to be not only consistent with our charter, but consistent with municipal practices throughout California and the United States.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So then, given what you just said about the litigation history on this issue, would the city then be able to anticipate a relative stability in terms of transfers on a going forward basis?
On the power side, that is certainly correct. I will point out that under the California Constitution, only water and sewer and non-gas and non-electricity matters are governed by Proposition 218, which became Articles 13C and D of the Constitution.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well,
one thing that I'd like to request, it doesn't seem like we have any comment cards on this item today, right,
no,
Madam Chair?
I don't have any.
But I would like you to forward us the opportunity to ask you those questions when this comes to council, because I think the general public is going
that's a good
to,
idea.
they've constantly been speaking about how this is an illegal transfer.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to remind them, as you just reminded us, that it is a legal transfer.
Well, not only is it legal, it's completely consistent with the chief organic law of the city, which is the city charter.
So if you could be there at council,
Yeah.
particularly
And if you could say that
so
again in
speak about the
council, that
litigation.
It would be
great.
my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that'd be great. That's a good idea. All right, well, we don't have a quorum, so we'll forward this as a communication.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think you also, we have number 5 on consent and 6, right?
5, I have some questions.
Oh, okay, all right, 5, all right, well, let's go to 2 then.
Okay. CEO report relative to increasing the bonding amount for sewer contractors and provisions for sewer saddle construction. We have staff and the CAO.
I have a clarifying question.
Okay,
Good morning.
hi.
I'm David Harana from the Office of CAO. Before you use a request from the Department of Public Works for authority to amend the municipal code to increase the bonding amount required of sewer contractors from $1,000 to $10,000 and to permit bonded sewer contractors to install connection saddles on sewers 15 inches or less in diameter. The increased bonding amount is requested to better reflect the cost of correcting a connection that was done improperly. And the last time the bonding amount was set was in 1978. The request to allow bonded sewer contractors to install connection saddles will decrease the time required for a sewer connection to be made and alleviate the Bureau of Sanitation of some workload and allow them to focus on some higher priority wastewater projects. In our review, we found in our discussions with the department that the cost of correcting an improperly done sewer connection could range all the way up to $25,000. So while we recommend that you favorably consider the department's proposal, we will also recommend that you consider upping the bonded amount to $25,000 to adequately cover the city's costs should something go wrong.
And would you anticipate that if we do take this action in the immediate future, there would be cost savings with respect to subsequent dispute or litigations?
I don't know that we could tell you there'd be cost savings. It would really depend on whether there were sewer connections that were done improperly and what the cost of fixing those sewer connections were in comparison to the bonded amount provided by the contractors.
Are you asking have you calculated that you've asked for enough then? In the event that there is a default or?
Well, the response we got from the department when we asked about the cost of fixing these connections was that it ranged all the way up to $25,000. So that's generally the guide we use to determine that amount.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas?
Madam Chair, now this is a recommendation to the committee, correct? And to the
Correct.
city council. So if we wanted to amend this recommendation, we could actually determine already that it would be 10,000 up until June, the end of June of 2009, and then after that, it could go up to 20 and then 25. Could we set that right now?
You could definitely set that, or you can instruct the city attorney to draft something of that nature, yeah.
Okay.
And one
What
of
I
the-
don't understand is why we wouldn't just do it all in one action instead of having to review it again. I mean, do you think that there's some review that needs to be done between now and moving up to 25,000?
Based on representation from the staff of the department, we did not think there was a review that needed to be done. However, they indicated the Board of Public Works was hesitant to raise the bonded amount all the way up to $25,000 at once. And they
Based
wanted to do it
on?
in-
Do you know
they-
why?
They felt that it would be more acceptable to the contractors to raise it in steps, periodic steps.
But the fact of the matter is, we're not talking about what somebody's paid for the work. It's a matter of the bonding.
Correct.
our own
Yeah.
Exactly. Basically, it protects everybody involved in case there's a dispute. Then that third-party bonding agency would actually get engaged.
Correct.
Are you from Public Works?
Yes, I'm, excuse me, Clark Robbins, Deputy City Engineer, if I could address your
Sure.
question. These are typically small contractors that do these sewer connection projects, and we were a little bit skeptical about raising it to the full 25,000 immediately, but rather ease them into it a bit.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Can you shed some light on what would be an easy schedule? Like, would it 2 years at 10,000 to subsequent 2 years later?
Yes.
Move it up? You follow what I'm saying?
That's reasonable, yes.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think it'd be good for us to set that schedule now and take it on one vote. And then that way, the contractors know between now and, the end of 2009, they know what their bonding is. And then if they don't have bonding capacity up to 25,000, which I find that hard to believe, they better probably working out of their house. But I say that because, small contractors these days are having to bond up to $500,000, $1 million.
Right.
So what I'd like to recommend, Madam Chair, is that we have a schedule, and I would like your input if you think the schedule is too aggressive. Well, we'll start off at 10,000
And then do the balance.
through the end of June of '09.
Fine.
And then, is
Councilmember-
1 year later or 2 years later?
In our report, we suggested you might want to take the approach where you raise it $3,000 a year for the next 5 years to get to 25,000.
The funny
You
thing
want-
about that, it's kind of awkward because the contracting community are used to the more rounded figures rather
Yeah.
than 13,000 to 16,007, et cetera. They know. I think as long as they know what they're up against, if they're going to do this work for the city of Los Angeles, they'll be able to plan for it. And again, I think it's kind of hard to find contractors who are doing this kind of work that aren't able to ramp up to a $25,000 bond, unless this is the kind of unique
What
bond.
kind of a split are you suggesting?
I'm thinking we go to 10,000
Year one.
now through June 30th of '09, and then give them 2 years to go to 20,000, and then a subsequent year later they finally get to the 25. So through June of '09, the bonding requirement is 10,000
10 and 5?
through the end of June. Yeah, and then at the end of June 30th of '11, they go to 20,000, and then in 2012, the end of June, then the bond requirement after that would be 25,000.
Okay.
Is that flexible enough, you think, for the
Yes.
industry?
I think so.
You wouldn't just want to put the 5,000 in the second year? Or you think that's too much?
Yeah, because they're already going to 10.
All right, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And sir, in our report, we also suggested that the council may want to consider installing in that ordinance a cost of living adjustment that's automatic so that we don't get in the situation again
Oh,
30 years
subsequent to
down the road.
25,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and a cost of living adjustment based on what factor?
Based on the
Tracks.
CPI?
CPI, yeah. Just
Which one?
general-
There's the county, there's the regional.
We could use the overall regional for all goods and services for.
Okay, the regional
appropriate,
CPI
yeah.
for all goods and services, the regional one.
Correct.
Okay. After the June 30th, 2012, adjusted once a year or every 2 years?
We could do it annually if you want.
Annually? Is that okay for the industry?
Delegate that to the Board of Public Works would be my suggestion, and that they do it annually along with their fee increases.
Okay,
Fee adjustments are
Right,
annual.
together, so they come together at the same time.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, now we do have a quorum, so
Item number 2.
if there's no questions on that,
I'll move the item as amended, or the recommendation as amended
Great.
by committee.
Thank you.
Okay.
that'd be there. Next item, I believe, is 3, and we're going to hear 3 and 4 together.
Yes. Both items relate to DWP reports requesting approval of agreements with CGI and the other Logica, CMG, software maintenance agreements.
Good morning. Marvin Moon, Director of Engineering Services. The department is seeking approval for 2 contracts. The first is Logica, which is our enterprise work management information system. It's also our mobile work management information system and maintenance program. It's a 5-year contract with expenditures of $5.5 million. The program is a proprietary software provided by Logica CMG, which supports all of the power distribution work, where all the design and accelerated work by engineering personnel are handled by the system, and is passed on to construction so that they can affect the construction and the cost estimates. It also has a mobile component to it, which is used by our electric trouble system. The water system also has their version of it, which supports their new business work.
Okay. Who's next?
The next program?
Yeah.
Okay, the second program is called CGI, and this is our outage management system and mobile dispatch system. It's a 5-year contract with expenditures of $5.36 million. The outage management system is also proprietary software provided by CGI, and it handles work-related issues for the electric trouble system and the electric transmission and distribution system. It's the equivalent of our 911 system for the power system. The system supports trouble dispatchers in diagnosing the source and locations of problems and dispatching repair crews. The mobile component incorporates laptop computers for electric trouble vehicles with real-time data and communications to automatically dispatch trouble work to the field crews. Record trouble activities performed by the crews, report trouble job status changes and job completion information in a real-time system, and provides job and device locations in a graphical environment.
Who's next? Well,
He's here.
you're all up here for a reason.
He's here first. Go ahead.
I'm Robert Roth from the CAO's office. Our report's consistent with what he's just reported on for
Does that mean you
CGI.
concur with what they are recommending then?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I'm Bill Kreitz from the CAO's office, and my report is on logic, and it is also consistent, and we do recommend what DWP is requesting.
On 3 and 4?
Well, mine is on 4, Robert's is on 3.
Okay,
I'm just here for support.
okay.
Yeah. You mentioned that this software is proprietary?
Yes.
That's a fancy way of saying that they're pretty much the only ones who design it, know how to maintain it, and usually we have to hire them 99% of the time to actually maintain it and for ongoing maintenance, correct?
There's a proprietary component that they have to maintain. There's also a non-proprietary component, which with the proper training can be done by us.
Now, how much of the personnel time it needs to be dedicated to the non-proprietary and the proprietary, roughly?
What's the break on that?
What's the
We're
breakdown?
looking at pretty much about 70% non-proprietary and 30% proprietary
Okay.
on both of these.
On both of them, okay. Okay, that's good. Now, did the city's information technology department have any inclusion in this, or did they give their third-party opinion on this? I know that they're part of the city, but this is Department of Water and Power. How much interaction did you have with them? Because they're our resident experts on that.
Well, go ahead. We relied on the department's information, ITS, the department's information system. We didn't talk to ITA on this program.
There's one ongoing thing with the vendors. Logica specifically has been in the Department of Transportation, and they've implemented portions of this system for them. So at some point in time, these kind of systems can actually be used for anyone who does work, basically work and field work, as far as work
But see, that's part of the reason why I was hoping that there was some kind of, even if it's brief communication with ITA, just to let the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing in the city, especially when you're talking about one of these is $5 million contract over 3 years. I think it's important for them to understand. Maybe they even have some experience with some of these companies that's both good or bad that can help the Department of Water and Power to best utilize to best situate their contract with them. Because that's been one of the biggest problems when it comes to information technology, is we learn our lessons after the fact, and once we go down that road, that money's expended, and if the contract isn't written tight enough, we end up spending that money. We have no recourse, so it kind of just adds some more expenditures, and we're really not getting our value. So is there any problem with communicating with ITA? And again, I'm not asking that ITA, they don't have the authority to say what is what with the Department of Water and Power, but at least utilize some of their expertise and pick their brain a little bit. That way, if there's anything to add to it, they can actually enhance the value of what your final contract is going to look like.
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay. What I'd like to recommend, Madam Chair, is that before we go to the floor of the council, that we get ITA's input toward you, and then when you come to the floor of the council, let us know if there was anything that was learned by that. Obviously, if they bring up something big enough, you're going to want to let us know that you're going to make some major changes, all for the better, I hope.
Yes.
And then we'll have a better contract.
Okay.
That's fine.
Great idea.
You can ask them to render an opinion much in the same way the CAO renders an opinion on your recommendations. Just a quick question for me. The department, as it transitions its own employees into non-proprietary IT functions, pursuant to this agreement. Has this matter been discussed on the labor side?
Yes, it has. We've had
What's the outcome?
We've had extensive conversations with labor and come to an agreement with regards to, in fact, that's why the contracts are written, so that the non-proprietary part or drops off, any support for that drops off after 3 years, and we'll be training new employees to support that function.
So that 3 years would be a training transition period?
That's correct.
Okay. And you've memorialized that?
Yes.
Okay.
And who would be the representing body of those employees once they?
IBEW.
IBEW?
Yes.
Any other questions? That was 3 and 4 together.
3 and 4 moved, and then also with the request that the ITA department for the city communicate, or that you communicate with them and bringing them up to speed, and then see if they have anything to add. Prior to council. Okay.
Madam Chair, the last day for council action on these items is the 25th of April, which is next week, so they have to do that.
Time.
Pretty quick.
Okay.
All right.
All right, great.
They work weekends.
Mr. Alarcon is here, and I believe he wanted to go back to number 1, if we could reopen number 1 so he could vote on number 1. Is that correct, Mr. Alarcon?
Yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to record it as a
All
note.
right, so
Thank you.
Exactly. I figured that.
now that we have a quorum, let's go back to number 1. Mr. Alarcon,
Record the no vote.
did you want?
Record.
Just to record it.
I'm sorry, the city attorney stepped out, so I'm going to have to go.
No, we don't need, he's
It's
supposed to
simply-
vote.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a communication from the chair supporting, and a communication as well from the committee opposing.
Mr. Alarcon wants to
Okay.
be recorded as a
Okay.
no vote on
So
the
it's
transfer.
2 ayes, 1 no?
2 ayes, 1 no. Okay.
Correct. Okay, we go on to item number 5.
Item number 5 is the EAD report relative to submittal of a 2008 illegal disposal grant application. I have staff from EAD.
Good morning. I'm Wayne Suda from the Environmental Affairs Department, and we are asking for your support and to inform you of a grant, $500,000 grant, that the Environmental Affairs Department has submitted to the California Integrated Waste Management Board for the cleanup of illegally dumped materials in 3 council districts in the south of LA for this coming year. The grant has been submitted, and we're awaiting final word on whether or not we are going to be awarded the grant. That should come in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. The purpose of the grant is to clean up illegally disposed materials on public streets in 50 locations in CDs 8, 9, and 15. It's an interdepartmental effort between EAD, the Bureau of Street Services, and the City Attorney's Office. We have applied for this grant in the past, and the vast majority of the money was used to pay for cleanup services. This grant is different in that we are reserving about $150,000 of the $500,000 for an outreach and enforcement component to reduce the rate of dumping overall in these areas.
What does enforcement mean?
Enforcement means the Bureau of Street Services will be using their street use inspectors to monitor, and in some cases, 24-hour monitoring of the dumping that's going on, and
How would they do
site.
that? Through cameras or?
My understanding is they're working on getting one camera, but they're literally going to be surveilling from their cars or other locations.
And if they see someone in the act, what can they do with that? Can they actually arrest them?
They can cite them, and it's my understanding they can impound their vehicles.
Can they call a LAPD to come and get the person? then?
I believe they have the authority to do that themselves, but LAPD can be involved. And was involved in the last grant that we operated. The LAPD at that time was using reserve officers rather than full-time sworn officers. I don't know whether it's street services. I think
When you come to council, can you get somebody from LAPD who actually works on this to come and explain on the record the nexus between, what you're getting and how that plays out in the field? Because I'm not really clear. I mean, I know in the past, there's been some work done in Newton, and I think it's been grant funded, but you know, I just don't think it's very clear what the connection is with $150,000 on education and enforcement. I think with respect to this, obviously, enforcement is the bigger issue for areas like 8, 9, and 15, because, you know, we have incredible dumping problems because of the industrial activity in those areas.
Yes.
Lots of places to hide.
It's getting to the point where they're dumping in broad daylight,
Yeah,
middle of the day.
So if you can, you do that, but when it comes to council?
Yes.
So that the connection between the two is clear?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
So what kind of flexibility is there on this particular grant proposal? Because somebody made the mistake of leaving Council District 6 out, because we have more dump sites, formal dump sites in CD6 than any other part of the city. We also have, as I'm noticing on this report, some of the chronic dumping is occurring because of people are coming across our city line and dumping into our city community. We have Burbank, we have Glendale, we have a lot of communities out there in the northeast end of the San Fernando Valley that we found and confirmed that a lot of that trash was being dumped on our streets from other cities, neighboring cities. In addition to that, we have a chronic problem. Unless somebody's going to tell me that we don't have a chronic problem in the 6th Council District, I don't understand how you left out the 6th Council District here.
Well, we did it statistically. We have information that was brought to us by the Bureau of Street Services that illegal dumping is costing the city about $12 million yearly.
Mm-hmm.
And of the total, 50% of the dumping is occurring in those 3 council districts,
Mm-hmm.
and has been getting worse in the past few years.
Yeah, but hold on a second.
Concentrating our efforts in the area where the majority of the dumping is occurring.
Hold on. 50% across 3 districts. That means that, on average, if those 3 districts have the same amount of dumping, that means they're getting about 17% of the city's dumping in each one of those districts, if it were equally dumped. Where does CD6 stand? Is CD6 getting 17%, 20%, 12%? How much of the dumping is going on in CD6? Because I would challenge Ms. Perry a lunch that I'm within a few percentage points of her district. And also Janice Hahn with CD's 15. You get what I'm saying? So why was it only that region that it would get the benefit of this grant?
Well, first of all, the grant is...
I think in the report, it indicates that the volume of illegal dumping in the remaining 12 averaged 78 cubic yards, while the volume of dumping in these 3 districts was 32,800. That's a huge difference. I was curious about my district as well as Tony's, but there was clearly a concentration in 8, 9, and 15.
But I contend, thank you for pointing that out, I contend that by grouping my district along with Jack Weiss's district, along with Rosendal's district, et cetera, it just dilutes the fact that my district has a chronic dumping problem just like everybody else. I'd rather that somebody report district by district what it is. Did the report cover that? Does the Department of Sanitation give you that information, district by district?
We could get that information.
Sure they lump, who did they lump? For your
Well,
district?
according to Alarcon, he just pointed out that they lumped all the other 12 districts together.
Well, they didn't lump, they did them individually, but they just took an average.
Yeah, but I don't see the individual.
Yeah.
My staff didn't see it, I didn't see it, and that's the problem, Richard. I mean, I would rather see them tell us how much was in CD7.
Well, you can rank it.
CD1, CD2.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, quite frankly, I'm sure that even if you ranked it by district, 8, 9, and 15 would probably still be in the top 3.
Yeah.
And I believe, I mean, I've been through his district, and, with the types of activities they have out there, I'm sure that they would be in the top 5.
Well, this does not affect the cleanup of illegally dumped material citywide. This grant only provides additional monies.
It's an enhancement of trying to attack the problem.
Yes.
But it's an enhancement that excluded other communities that, in my opinion, have as much of a chronic problem as those districts do.
And the interesting thing about dumping is, I think dumping goes where there's a void.
Mhm.
And where there is enforcement in one area, unless you actually take people into custody and put them out of business, they just run to another area where it's easier to dump and hide. I mean, I think you know that too.
Right.
Yeah. Do it with the tires, roof materials, you name it.
Well,
So what's the flexibility if we were to get this grant, that we would, what kind of flexibility is afforded to us by, what is it, the state
it's the state waste board.
waste board? What flexibility are they allowing us? Could this grant be used in Sun Valley, is my ultimate point.
I'm sure if we modified our request to them, yes.
Well, I'm challenging you to look into whether or not we should modify it based on the numbers, not based on the fact that this council member's a little upset, not based on the fact that I might, want to get your attention, on the numbers. I don't want to take something away from another part of the city just because I happen to speak louder than maybe one of my colleagues does.
Well, no,
That's
but
not my
strategically
point.
speaking, enforcement is an issue, just like gang reduction. You chase a problem one way in one direction, unless you shut it down,
Yeah.
it just will bulge up somewhere else. And maybe where the flexibility comes in is on the issue of enforcement and surveillance and arrest. People who do this. But they're just going to run from one part of the city to the other.
Right.
You do enforcement out there and not do it in South LA, then everybody's going to run to South LA and dump over there. And get out of Sun Valley for a while because it's too hot.
Okay. So how much time would you need to review it and then let us know how the different council districts rank and why we should have a cutoff point at a certain point of which council districts or which areas should be included should this grant become part of our new enforcement,
All right.
part of our new solution?
Can you get that
How
done
much time
before
do
it
you
goes to council?
Sure.
And then bring the LAPD person with you.
Is there a,
There used to be a fellow out of Newton who worked very closely on this.
The person we are working most closely with is our representative from the city attorney's office, who is doing the prosecutions. So
Okay.
I'll bring him.
Why don't you
and-
bring him? Good.
Okay.
and is there a deadline to bring this to council?
Is there?
Well, we don't have to bring it to council unless we get the award. I mean, we don't, at this point, we just applied for it.
And this is, right at this point, this is a report.
This is a report,
Okay.
yes.
So
Just hold it in committee.
we'll hold it in committee
Yeah.
so that we can
Yeah.
afford ourselves the opportunity
Sure.
to figure out what should be a more holistic solution.
I can bring back the information you've requested
About 2 and
and the other parties for the grant, and
Yeah.
we can go over this. again.
What's the awarding period of the grant?
I think it'll be about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, is that enough time? Did you want to come back sooner?
Yeah, we can come back before that.
Why don't you come back in 2 weeks? Does that give you enough time?
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, if you could
May
meet with
6th.
my office and show us what the numbers are like, illegal dumping across the city, and then see how it breaks down by district.
Great.
The, this program is actually an extension of a previous program that we've done with the Integrated Solid Waste Management Board,
Yes.
right? So they've been tracking our work, and they're very familiar with our targeting and why these areas are being selected.
I think one of the reasons why this application will stand out to them is because of the enforcement component. They've given us money in the past for illegal dumping, but at the same time, the city needs to ramp up some program to prevent it from happening. And that was...
I appreciate Mr. Carden's concerns, and I share the same concerns because I represent the adjoining neighborhoods. The problem, however, is there's two sides to the problem. Part of the problem is that the southeast areas are sucking up a lot of the $6 million in resources, so that other areas don't get the benefit of using that money. One area in particular, one council district was responsible for $1 million, I believe, in expenditures in this account. So theoretically, if we can throw a targeted effort, which I hope would include an educational component, because a lot of these items will be picked up by the city for nothing,
Yes.
and they're dumping them on the streets. I've never figured out why that happens, but we need to do more, maybe more media outreach to let the public know that they can just put it in front of their house and it'll be picked
right.
up.
Although the real egregious dumping is not coming from the public.
I understand.
Yeah.
In fact, I had one just, in fact, it was your district, just a few feet from my wife's business, where they dumped about a ton of dirt, and they even spread it real nice. But I think what's going on here is that you've had a historical relationship with the Solid Integrated Waste Management Board with regard to these specialized kinds of grants. The city expends $6 million a year. You're asking for $500,000 to do a targeted approach on an area that is responsible for 52% of the illegal dumping, which absorbs a lot of that $6 million. In the future, I think you should anticipate these kinds of concerns of committee members. We're always going to be looking out for our district, and I think your presentation should have included sort of the history of this project, and also why our districts weren't selected. It might be a lot easier to do it that way. But I reading the report, it seems to be indicative of you targeted a bunch of areas. You did an assessment on that. I believe the California Integrated Waste Management Board was participant in that, and that was a citywide effort. So then you honed in on the southeast area because it was responsible for 52%. I mean, the logic is there, but I think it would be nice when doing these kinds of grant applications where certain areas are being prioritized over others, if just as a matter of course you just provided what the situation is in each of the 15 districts, it'd make things a lot easier for us. And we used to do that. I know in Public Works Committee we used to identify. In fact, I don't even know why this is in energy, but
Well, he has time to put it in now. Rank.
but we used to rank by council district what problems and services are being rendered.
I'm sure I'll still be number one.
Don't,
No matter what, without a doubt.
You and Bernard are way
Yeah,
up
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're way out there. We were just out yesterday looking at some dumping areas, and it's just astonishing what the lack of regard and disrespect. And I'd almost rather, in this case, it's not coming from residents, it's coming from people who are running businesses in these light industrial areas.
And
other cities, too.
I think a lot of the contractors are probably people who view Spanish language TV, and we should be able to get a stronger message out to Spanish language TV that there's a way to handle this stuff better. Yes, we're not going to get to the ones that do it strategically as part of their business, but there's a lot of people who are dumping. Heck, they threw a sofa in my front yard a few months ago. They literally threw a sofa in my front
I
yard.
had a man who actually got killed one year because he was dumping roofing materials, and they fell back on him and killed him over in the Goodyear track,
I'd like to think it was a political opponent, but,
Who threw the couch?
Yeah, I think it was just somebody throwing a cat.
All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold it in committee. All right, I think our last item is 7, so we can get down to council on time.
Madam Chair, this is a Bureau of Sanitation report relative to the septic tank ordinance revisions. Staff from
Let's hear it.
sanitation.
Good morning. I'm Brent Lorscheider with the Bureau of Sanitation, and I'll try to be brief here this morning. We're here to report on a motion that requested us to report back on 2 different items. First, to submit alternatives for a revised definition of stream and the protection and restoration of city streams, and second, to provide an interim policy for permitting on-site wastewater treatment systems, more commonly referred to as septic systems or septic tank systems. With respect to the first topic, the Bureau has been active with the Department of Public Works in pulling together a task force that is currently looking at different measures to protect streams, and they are in the process of developing a detailed map that would show the streams that would be the subject of this protection. They're working out of the Board of Public Works in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office and Building and Safety and other concerned departments, trying to get input on, and we'll be preparing a formal map and coming back to your committee as well as full council with a recommendation for that topic. With respect to the second one, the interim policy for regulating or permitting on-site wastewater treatment systems, more commonly referred to now as OATS, The department has developed another task force, primarily with the same parties, the same participants, and they have worked together with the Regional Water Quality Control Board to prepare and recommend an interim policy to continue to permit septic tanks. The city has historically permitted these systems throughout the years with the approval and understanding from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. However, now the regional board, along with all the other regional boards in the state of California, are requiring MOU agreements to continue this, and these MOU requirements require more stringent oversight of the permitting process. So we've reviewed our permitting process. We've also looked at the streams that are involved in permitting those. We've incorporated a few streams from the EPA, and we're now recommending an interim policy whereby we use these streams as the formal permitting basis for new applications. We'll then continue to work with this task force because this MOU that we've recently entered into requires that the city develop an ordinance that will require all of the OAT systems in the cities to eventually be subject to inspection
Have you
requirements.
calculated what this would transfer to in terms of cost to the residents?
Right now, we estimate somewhere around $500 to go through a permitting and inspection process roughly every 3 years. That's if you have a conventional system. Now, there are some more sophisticated supplemental treatment systems that are required in high-risk areas. Those will be more expensive, but there's only a limited number of those in the city. But they will cost more like $1,500, perhaps even annually for those.
I know this is just a report, but do you have a map that does show, or are you going to prepare something that shows all the newly classified streams?
Yes, we do. In the report, we've got some detailed maps attached, and they'll be going forward with it.
I mean, these things?
Yeah, I mean, we have larger versions, though.
Okay, maybe you might want to get something, yeah, what's it, GIS? Yeah.
Yeah.
Color, with more definition.
More detail,
Yeah,
yes.
this is pretty crude.
Oh, yes, we agree.
I look like amoeba or something. I couldn't even tell. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, if you have the capacity to do that, and you're only doing a report today anyway, so we're not going to take an action on this. So I think that would be extremely helpful for people in areas. You're doing this, and you're actually doing this citywide, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you could do a map by council district and, color with specificity, GIS.
Okay.
Quality. As I know, as I'm hopefully about to break ground by the end of the year, down at 54th and Avalon, there's some underground activity there, water activity, and you may have picked it up. And I'd like to see what you've got.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
there actually are requesting adoption of the report,
Oh,
which
they
would
are,
include,
okay. All right.
so they could regulate septic tanks.
Okay.
Which is why we've also recommended a amendment to that, to stress that the stream definition in there
Yeah.
be solely for the purpose of the septic tanks regulation.
Okay. Yeah.
Given that the Stream Protection Task Force is already working on a more global, so it won't impact.
Yeah, that's good, because you
Yeah.
see, I think there are probably people, I'm unaware as to the level of septic tank activity, say in my district, for example, and I'm only guessing, but just on a going forward basis, maps with that kind of detail in there would be helpful. Questions from Mr. Alarcon or Cardenas on this item?
No, I would love to see those maps.
Okay, great. Then today we'll take action as amended by, or as recommended by the CLA, and you come back to us in maybe 2 months with the CLA.
Or do you want to come back sooner?
No, I'd prefer to come back a little later.
All right, why don't you give us an idea of how long it would take for you to do these maps?
30 days, 45 days?
Well, I meant later than 2 months.
60 days?
Up
yeah.
to you.
At least 60 days, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, get them back in 60 days and we can see the map.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. This is the, thank you very much. That'll be the, without objection, on item 7. That concludes our agenda. This is the portion of the meeting for those who wish to speak on items that are not on the agenda to come and make public comment. Seeing that no one is coming forward, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Okay.
They're going to make